Hi, class. This week we talked a lot about different kinds of designs and what the strong and weak designs are in studies. And so I thought I'd incorporate that into this week's video when we talk about um the parts of the research methods in the gospel. And so what I was thinking about was the chapter talked a lot about the importance of pretests in certain studies because pretests can make the information that you're giving that it gives it a stronger case and it causes it to be a stronger study and not lacking information or lacking proof. So, like if a teacher were to test, like the textbook mentioned, if a teacher were to test different scores from different students, then they would want to start with a pretest at the beginning of the year and then at the end of the year compare the scores. I kind of thought about, once again, the premortal existence. I'm going over that a lot in my Pearl of Great Price class. But the premortal existence specifically talks about like that there was a test for us even before we were sent to Earth and which side we were going to take. And I imagine that was kind of like that was kind of like our pretest. And it's going to determine, that was the thing that was going to determine what we were going to be like, and what opportunities we would have. Because without that initial choosing Christ or choosing Satan's side, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to come to Earth to further prove what we would be like with our own bodies. And so, in a certain sense, I think that that was a really important pretest for people. It gave a really good indication of who was going to follow Christ on earth and who was not as well. I don't imagine that the people who followed Satan's plan would have followed the commandments here on this earth because they didn't beforehand. And that was a pretty important choice, I think, for all of us to make because, to be honest, I'm sure we all know that it's kind of freaky to move out of your parents' house, you kind of being on your own. That's essentially what it was when we came down to earth. We decided that we were going to trust people, and trust that we would be people that we may have never even met and what families we were going to be in. And that was probably a pretty challenging decision for all of us to make. I think many of us were probably pretty valiant, though, and knew that what God was saying was right, and Christ's side was obviously the side to choose. But at the same time, it was definitely a challenging one because there's always the fear of failure. And so I think when we'll look back, when we're these all glorified celestial beings, we'll look back on everything and think, oh, hey, look at where my test started and look at the completed portion. And we'll be able to use, in a sense, a research method to compare and contrast how far we've come or what our scores are, in a sense. And so that's just what I was thinking about this week with the pretesting. It's interesting how many things can be applied to the gospel and used and learned in that kind of a way.